Simpsons Skybox Art de Bart card. Why is that one so expensive, would you say?
Each of those has an original piece of art drawn by Matt Groening, who created The Simpsons.
Every box does include like an oversized sketch card, and the sketch card looks to be pretty straightforward as far as the art, and just says Star Wars at the bottom of it. So there's not like a bunch of writing on it. The Batman Returns autograph from Danny DeVito in the 1992.
It is Batman the Animated Series, Series 2, and he signed 2,000 of them in total.
Welcome to the Hobby Nonsense Podcast, everyone. My name is Jesse Gibson. I'm the host of the show, and this is episode 4. I can't believe we're already at episode 4. I am very happy to say that each episode, I continue to get more and more of a response from you, the audience. I can't say thank you enough. And that response has been mainly very positive, but it's also, what I like about it is that it also includes ideas that you guys have for, things to make it better, things to make it more exciting, or things that you want to hear about that you were questioning forever and you just never got a real good answer on. That's what this podcast is for. It's to expand the non-sport world, to open your eyes to what's going on, not just with the card market, but we will be expanding it out. You probably have also wondered, hey, he says Hobby Nonsense is about non-sport cards and collectibles, but I only hear about cards. Well, that is primarily because of the history of my podcasting comes from the sports cards nonsense world, which is a card focus community. And I know you guys are primarily probably looking for more card related content, but the idea, like I mentioned, is to slowly, easy move into some more collectible related content. And as we have little stories here and there, I'll definitely add them in, but even eventually hope to have full segments related to just collectibles in general. So we'll continue to branch out. But again, I thank you guys for reaching out. Again, both good and bad. If you've got feedback, let me know. But the show today is going to be very exciting. We've got Ryan Cracknell. He is maybe one of the most well-versed authors on the internet when it comes to non-sport cards. Literally, you search Ryan Cracknell and you search non-sports, you will find so many different articles, especially when it comes to what many are going to call the junk wax era. And it is true, it was the junk wax era, but that doesn't mean it's not still cool, right? It doesn't mean it's not still fun, especially when it comes to like things that I cared about, because if I cared about it, you cared about it. That's how this goes. I'm very self-centered. No, I'm just, but it is like, if I cared about it, more than likely, a lot of you listeners probably did too. I was born in 86 and I am a big fan of Nintendo and Back to the Future and cartoons and video games, all in that early junk wax period. And we just so happen to be fortunate enough to have a lot of card sets made around there. Now, some of them you may have heard of, some of them you may not have. Some of them might have rarer cards. Some of them might have very valuable cards in there. We're going to talk a lot about all of those different things with Ryan when he comes on the show. Great news. I've already done the interview. It's already in the books, and I can tell you for a fact that's what we're going to talk about because I am from the future. Couple other things I wanted to talk about. A few news related, some new releases, things like that are coming out. Every episode has included a little bit of Pokemon somewhere in it. I've been hesitant to do it. I've been almost like pushing off from saying more about it because I feel like I keep bringing up Pokemon, and this is not a Pokemon podcast, but I'm starting to I feel like I just need to embrace it. This is part of the non-sport world, and granted, I know it's a TCG, but we're considering it in the non-sport world. And there's just so much that's going on in the news around it. So first off, I just want to do a quick update on couple things in that space before we jump over to another interesting topic. Pokemon Prism Evolutions. That is one of the newest sets that was just released. And I am pointing this out because I got some information from someone who has allocation in Pokemon. And I'm not going to name names because I don't want their allocation to be affected or anything like that. Right before Prism Evolutions came out, they were saying how they got very, very little allocated, like record-setting small amounts for what they usually get. And that's what you were kind of seeing in a lot of places, is what's caused a lot of this demand. It feels like is just everyone is trying to get boxes of this, the ETBs or any other version of this, because they can't find it anywhere, or if they can, it's sold out immediately. And his theory was that in the week after the initial release, maybe 2 weeks after, you're going to see all of a sudden these stores that sold the product to come out and say, hey, we just got a big shipment, a new shipment of product come in, come and get it. We're ready. We're restocked and ready to go. And his theory is basically that these distributors were not saying anything, not that these stores would know, but he was saying that the distributors were just holding on to a ton of product, and that within a week or two after the initial release, you were going to see people just all of a sudden have more product, when really they had it all along, but they were creating almost like a false sense of scarcity to build up demand. And I'm not going to lie, I just saw a post that said, hey, go check your Targets. They just got a huge new update and release of the Prism Evolutions. They got restocked. You can go get your ETBs right now. And that's like a week or two after the initial release. I don't know what to tell you. The fact that he made the theory, then we're in that time frame, and he's saying, and I'm seeing these posts about it, it raises questions. I don't know, because no one has really given a good answers why Pokemon pricing is what it is right now. I've heard a lot of different theories. I know when we had Ray on, he was talking about Pokemon pricing. It's no one's given a concrete reason as to what has caused this surge in boxes of old wax and individual card pricing to go up like it has. But that is one thing that I think we could maybe attribute to some of the newer product being so high in pricing right now. Another point that it does still kind of relate to Pokemon, but it's just more of a non-sport thing in general. Goldin Auctions recently came out and just flat out said they use CT scanning in one of their products for an auction. Now, it's interesting because I don't know if I've seen anyone else just come out and say, hey, we used a CT scanning service to check some of our product. Now, I will say, giving credit where credit's due, they did it because they were specifically checking to make sure the contents were what was advertised. And they can't come back. It was I think it was like a Series 1, 1999 or 2000 Chinese language Pokemon first edition box, something like that. I'm sure I've got some of that titling wrong, but they wanted to make sure, because I think that was the same kind of box, except it was the English version that Logan Paul had opened, that turned out to be like G.I. Joe cards on the inside, even though it had like the BBCE wrapping to say it was like authenticated. It turned out to be fake. So in lieu of like selling something that was not actually what they claimed it to be, they got it scanned, and it is said to be actually what was in there. Now, they even specifically said in the article that I saw, I think it was on Collect, that this was just to confirm contents, not to verify what was in the box. So I don't know if anybody actually checked through the individual, hundreds of cards that would have been in that box. Hopefully they didn't, but either way, they're not releasing that information if they did. And they're saying that it was just simply to confirm the cards were what they were. So just interesting note that to see the use of CT scanning as it relates to something in the card space, specifically the non-sport card space. Last week, I teased the Star Wars Antiquities release. I'm going to be breaking some of this over on Fanatics Live, but I got 2 cases. And to be clear, in a case, there is 1 box. And in every box, there is 1 pack, and that pack has 9 cards. It is a high-end, very scarce product. I could only get 2 of them. I got 2 on my account. Mike got 2 on his. It looks like I might have gotten 4 cases altogether of this. Of those 9 cards, 5 of them will be autographs. And of those cards, you have a chance to hit now this is not a real metal, but Beskar inspired metal cards. So there will be like actual metal cards printed on there. They are on-card autos. You also have Pedro Pascal as the Mandalorian and a number of others. There's not a full checklist out as of yet, but we can only assume most of the bigger stars are going to be signing, if they're still alive, to be able to sign on card. The other materials that are used, it's not just metal cards, but they're also using, in some cases, wood. So you've got a chance to hit like a wooden card, some kind of gold framed autograph, which I'm very curious to see what that will end up looking like. But the fact that they're doing these different materials to print on, I don't know. I just like that it's something different. I think that's kind of cool that it's going to be changes in what we're used to as far as just opening up a pack of cards and pulling up a cardboard piece of artwork. The other thing that's nice is that every box does include like an oversized sketch card, and the sketch card looks to be pretty straightforward as far as it's just the art and just says Star Wars at the bottom of it. So there's not like a bunch of writing on it. So you could actually use this almost like as an art piece or something like in your office or your room or however you want to display it. But it is something nice that you don't have to worry about like being like an advertisement for Topps or Star Wars. Then you have got a couple other nice features as well. So the autograph parallels, they're saying it's numbered out of 25, I think is the most. The base set parallels, you've got red that's numbered out of 10, gold that's numbered to 1, and then there's also a hyperspace that's numbered to 1. I'm not exactly sure what that's going to look like, but the autograph parallels, they're numbered a max of 25, so low numbered already. That is a nice feature of it. They also are going to include this cool thing, wax pack. So 1977 was when the original Star Wars movies came out, and then the cards came out. They came in, of course, the wax packages. There is going to be one on-card auto that comes in these wax packs, like a throwback to when the cards originally came back in 1977. And they are going to be, I guess, 1977 inspired set. I don't think they just took some of the cards and had some of the stars sign those. So I'm not exactly sure what that will look like either, but it's kind of cool to see the artwork on the nostalgic 1977 wax pack, to see how they do that modern day. This is going to be a pretty cool set that's coming out. Again, this comes out on February 5th is the date that this will be releasing, as far as people who are going to be breaking it. And I'm guessing there's going to be some hobby shops that will have some of this, but again, like I said, there is very, very little of this out there. I don't know the exact number, but I can tell you that some of the people on the back end of Topps have told me that there are people who usually would expect to get, 10, 20, 50 cases of a product. They might get 2. Let's go ahead and get into our interview with Ryan Cracknell. So we have got Ryan Cracknell in the office here today. Not actually in the office. I couldn't afford the flight to get Ryan down from Canada today, but Ryan is joining us via online means. Ryan, you are, if I am correct here, you are the hobby editor of Beckett. Is that right?
Yep, that's my title.
How did you get into this?
I'm a card collector who lives in Canada who doesn't really collect or even watch hockey. So back in the late 90s, I wanted to trade cards, so I started a website. At the same time, I was going to university, thought of being a journalist. That did not work out, thankfully. At least newspaper journalist, I should say.
Okay.
So as I continued to develop my own website, took another job back in 2011 for another website. And then in 2015, I made the jump over to Beckett. And then in between there was some freelance magazine articles with a few different publications. And
I will say this, Ryan, before I reached out to you, I had seen some of your writing without knowing who Ryan Cracknell was. I just saw the posts that you would have on non-sports stuff and sports cards as well. But I didn't realize until like having you come on, because actually someone who listens to the podcast reached out to me, message and say, hey, Ryan writes like some fantastic articles. You should have him on because he seems really well informed on a number of non-sport subjects. But I noticed after doing a little Google searching, your name comes up on so many different articles as far as specifically to the non-sport world. And like, not just on Beckett's website, but on multiple other websites too. Like I was pulling up a number of topics because I wanted to talk about, 80s and 90s really popular IP sets today. And when I was Googling that subject matter, Cardboard Connection came up. I didn't realize that you wrote for them, and you write every one of the articles that comes up on there is it from you.
I was with Cardboard Connection from 2011 to 2015. So that was kind of where we found a little groove over there. And I have my own personal website as well that I do more to have fun.
Tradercracks.com, is that right?
Yeah, that was that old trading site from back in the day. It's just kind of evolved from GeoCities to one day I went and got a URL and tried to make it look fancy.
It looks like you cover TV. It's broken up to like TV, movies, comics, Star Wars. I mean, like basically all of the main non-sport subjects, Garbage Pail Kids, Disney, music, and then you also have a sports card section on there. When I reached out to you specifically, I wanted to talk about things that were something more of interest, I guess, to me personally, but I know it's also an interest to a lot of our listening audience, and I think to yourself as well. But it was, I grew up, I was born in 86, and I grew up through the animated cartoon eras, like the classic era of, Ninja Turtles, and there was Power Rangers, and there was like like Back to the Future had cartoons even, but then you also had the movies that were coming out and all the TV shows that went along with that. I know that there are cards because I have some of them myself. So I wanted to talk specifically about some of the more popular pieces of IP, intellectual property, that go along with those sets. Where do you want to start? Because I just kind of like asked a few of you, and then you've come up with a few more. So where would you like to go?
Collecting interests overlap big time. Movies and TV shows are like kind of my bread and butter. Video games, that was a touchy subject in my house growing up, or at least at one of my with my mom, with my dad, not so much, but
not allowed video games type of thing.
Yeah, well, I stayed up all night one night and she saw me with the bloodshot eyes and it didn't go over well.
If it helps, I wasn't technically allowed to watch Power Rangers, but here I am talking about it because I might or may not have been sneaking watching that. I'm sorry, Mom and Dad. Can we start with Back to the Future? Because Sure. You messaged me before the show, and everybody, I think anybody who knows about non-sports cards, they know about Back to the Future, the cards that came out in 1989. But it is not Back to the Future, the original movie. It's Back to the Future 2. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize that there doesn't seem to be a set for Back to the Future, the first movie, or at least I didn't think there was. But you have done a little digging into this?
Yeah, I found out actually about 5 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. I was just compiling an article on what's out there for Back to the Future. And I came across a set of all places from Canada that came in, I believe it was General Mills cereal, which is kind of like, I don't know if you guys have General Mills in the States, but it was, one of those inserts in the box, and it was available for a limited time. And so I hopped on eBay, grabbed a set. I think it's 9 or 10. It's not very big at all. It's only like a dozen at the most cards. I forget off the top of my head, but it's sitting in a binder in my stacks of binders somewhere. So there is technically a set out there. If you step outside of cards a little bit and you move into the Panini stickers, they also did a set of stickers back in the day, which are pretty tough to find. And if they're out there, pretty pricey.
Are they really pretty pricey? That was what I was going to ask, because as I looked, most of the cards that you find for the Back to the Future 1989 top set, the most expensive that come up are like typically they'll have an auto from Michael J. Fox or Christopher Lloyd, or in some cases both, and that kind of ups the price on them. But even still, there's not a lot that are super high value. You're talking about like $600, $500 here and there. Now, granted, I did find there's a 1989, the number one card in that set did like $750 as a PSA 10, because getting a 10 in any of these sets is very rare and very difficult, and it typically ups the price. But what are we talking about? Like if you were to say that cereal, the one that you found in the cereal set, or the Panini stickers, what kind of values are we talking?
Oh gosh, the cereal ones, I actually haven't even looked in a very long time. The last time I did, yeah, I honestly don't know. With a Panini set, I would probably anticipate several $100. If you were to track down a set and even singles, probably my guess would be like $5, $10. Um, times it by 300 card stickers if that's, it adds up.
Do you find it too when we're talking about non-sports that for the most part they're more affordable for the actual collector of the card? When we talk about sports cards on the SCN podcast, I find that oftentimes you have to be pretty well off to be able to afford some of those sets, especially if you're wanting any like parallels or numbered things. But especially some of these sets that we're talking about today, I feel like these are actually achievable things to collect, or even if you just want like one or two here and there, they're actually something that most people could get their hands on.
100%. Honestly, that's one of the things that I love. I'm a completist. I like having everything of something. So the stuff that came out in the 80s, especially if you go back to the 70s, they're super attainable. For tops, most sets would have 88 to 132 cards. And then you'd have one sticker that was typically one per pack, and there'd be 20 stickers. So if you were like the rich kid on the block who got the whole box from the corner store, you would get the whole set in one box, or maybe two.
I wonder what it was too, because I noticed as I looked through. In fact, speaking of Beckett and non-sports, I have one of my more recent copies of the non-sport update magazine. I don't know.
Choice.
Do you write for this? I couldn't see any articles with your name on it in there.
I wrote for them from 2005 through maybe 2 or 3 years ago. My workload just got to be too. Yeah, that was one of my original freelance gigs. I pitched something for Batman Begins, and that turned into like a monthly column with them.
Man, Batman Begins has some really nice autos in that set too. But that's for another decade that we'll talk about. But what I noticed when I was looking through this specific issue was it says the article is entitled "Top 10 Sets of the 1980s," which I was like, oh wow, perfect. What are the odds? Because I literally just started thumbing through this maybe an hour ago, and I noticed that a lot of the sets from Topps all have somewhere like in the like upper 80s as far as the number of cards in the set. Was there any reason for that?
I believe it was the sheets, just how they were printed. I know a lot of sheets for sports cards back then were 132 cards. So maybe there was an 88 size. But if you look at the uncut sheets, that's going to give you your answer.
Since we were talking a little bit about value, and that's one of the things I do like to acknowledge and try and educate people on is some of these things. Not only are they affordable, but there are some higher price items. And I'm not sure if you did any digging yourself into this, but one of those sets that I have always appreciated are some of the Simpsons, the original early on Simpsons. And when I did, some searching to find what some of the higher value cards were in the non-sport space that span from like 86 to like 94, the card that came up most often, actually, let me ask you, do you know what card it would be? Do you have any guess?
Oh, I did, even before you mentioned it in our emails. As soon as you said the time frame there, I'm like, yeah, I know exactly what, because it's outside of the Harry Potter triple autograph, which is, again, probably another day. Probably the most iconic entertainment trading card that you could even possibly think of for multiple reasons.
All right. Well, then I'm just going to say it, and I'm hoping that we're on the same page then. It's the 94 Simpsons Skybox Art de Bart card. Why is that one so expensive, would you say?
Well, it's number one, it's one of the earliest sketch cards. I haven't been able to pinpoint the exact first sketch card. That's probably in the top 5 sets. I think there was like a fantasy one of the fantasy artists, and a comic called Bone by Jeff Smith, which is amazing. I think those two came before it. But what is so special about this Art to Bart is it is an original sketch card. So each of the, 300 copies? I believe it is, 300 or 400. Out of 400. So each of those has an original piece of art drawn by Matt Groening, who created The Simpsons. So not only is it original art of The Simpsons from like the glory days of The Simpsons, it's by the creator of, the characters, the show, everything the most important person to do with The Simpsons, period. And each one is signed as well.
I apologize. I said 94. It was actually 1993 Skybox where that set came out. But I was looking through these and I noticed too, I always just assumed it was Bart that was drawn on them. It's not always Bart Simpson. There's Homer Simpson. There's a few other characters I guess you could also find in those sketches. I find the fact that they're going for, I mean, some of these have sold upwards almost $20,000 in some cases for like a graded tin. I am so jealous of the people that have this, and I realized maybe a year or so ago that this is not a card that if you went out and bought these boxes, they don't go for extremely high amounts because that was a redemption card, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So you can't, if you're lucky enough to find one of those boxes, because I'm pretty sure that they've dried up long, long ago, you're not going to find one in there. So just know that going in, it's an amazing set. It's super fun, super funny, great inserts. But you'll get the redemption card if you're lucky. But I'm pretty sure, I haven't looked at sales data for the redemption card itself, but even that, it's not going to be 20,000. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's a few hundred just for the redemption card.
Did you know that the ear and the hair on Homer Simpson's head, when you look at the profile, it makes an M and G, and that's Matt Groening's initials? Were you aware of that?
I learned something today.
I used to be one of the biggest Simpsons fans as a kid, and I know I still quote in my everyday vocabulary. There's words and or phrases that I use constantly, and it's all from The Simpsons. So actually looking at some of those redemption cards, they do grade them. And in July of last year, a PSA 7 of the redemption card, not the actual Art to Bart card, but the redemption itself, went for $6,000. If you can believe that. That's absolutely insane to me. What's one of yours? Like, what's one of the, I guess, pieces of IP that you're most favorited?
For me, probably my favorite set, even though it's not a really attractive one, but it's more, I'm an A-Team nerd. So in 1983, yeah, Topps did a A-Team set. So it's like a lot of Mr. T, a lot of car crashes. I actually today have like a little side collection of Mr. T. So that's one of my personal favorites outside of, the Star Wars sets. Have a lot of those. I see you like the Batman 1989 set. That was a big set for me too. My mom brought me a box at home.
That was awesome. That was the one with Tim Robbins directed Batman, and did that have like, I'm trying to think too, to say like that set or the A-Team one, do they have like any rare pieces in there that people don't know about? Because I have found that is the case on occasion with some of these older, like quote unquote junk wax cards.
Chase stuff was not a thing back then at all. What you'll see now, like if you see autographs, autographs didn't really fully take hold in entertainment pop culture stuff until the late 90s. There are a few exceptions. Danny DeVito actually being one of them for Batman Returns. He does have a certified autograph. I can't remember the exact set that it came in. But it's a signed copy of his Stadium Club character card. And it's tricky because there is no reference that it is an autograph. So it could be easily duplicated. There's no certification language like we see now. So it is a little bit, tricky. I was lucky enough to grab one like 20 years ago. So that's a cool one, but that's part of the fun of the 80s and early 90s stuff is the stickers were the chase, and they were one per pack. There are very few sets that went beyond that. Pee-wee's Playhouse was one of them. Topps did a set in 1988, and they called it Play Packs or Fun Packs. And it had a regular base set. It had stickers, but then beyond that, it had like these activity cards, and there were these smaller little lenticular things. All of it, not a huge set altogether, but there's so many variations that building a master set was tough. And the activity cards are actually, you'll get like 10 copies of one of the activity cards in every box. Building a set of that is hard, but there's still quite a bit of it out there.
Well, I was actually just looking up the 1988 Pee-wee's Playhouse from Topps. You said it has the lenticular cards. That's like the ones where like you kind of move it and it looks almost like it's changing position or something like that.
Totally. Yeah, but it's just two images. So when you tilt it, I call them flicky cards because I didn't know what lenticular was back in the day. So in that one, you'd have like Cowboy Curtis turning into Missy Vaughn.
When you're talking about the Batman Returns autograph from Danny DeVito in the 1992, that's I think it was like Topps Stadium Club or Stadium Club. I don't know how they branded it, but that is actually what I'm talking about as far as like there's some of these sets where the box is like relatively cheap. I have like 2 of these Batman Returns boxes in my closet at home that I got for, I can't even remember, maybe $25 each. Very cheap. But people don't realize like there are in some cases like little treasures like that where it's got, the Danny DeVito card that was just inserted in there. Looking right now, it looks like some of the more recent ones, like a PSA 9 sold a few months back for $600. There's a few others for $350, $400, but I think, like you said, there's kind of the issue of not being able to get the COA on there. But yeah, that kind of thing really intrigues me about some of this, quote unquote junk wax where people are selling it for, pennies or a few $10-$20, and then secretly inside they've got like a rare card like that. I'm always intrigued about sets like that.
Honestly, there's not a lot. That's the exception. And to preface on that Danny DeVito autograph, it isn't actually in the packs of the Stadium Club. It's in a different set. I forget which one exactly, but I'm like 98% sure that it came out somewhere else.
Really? Because it's being sold as 92 Topps Stadium Club Batman Returns, but
yeah, there's no marking on it.
It looks like it's in there because I found one where it does show the back of it. It looks like it could have been in there, but I would like to, if you find anything else, let me know, because I would like to make sure the audience is well aware of whether or not this card is real or not, because it says it's number 2.
It's real. It's just where it came from. Here it is. Found it already. 1993 Topps Batman the Animated Series. So it's nothing to do with the movies. It's Batman, but it's not the Batman movies.
But it shows like his character, like his real life character.
Even getting more specific, it is Batman the Animated Series, Series 2. And he signed 2,000 of them in total. So the card itself is from the Batman Returns. It could have been they got them signed afterwards, kind of, because redemptions didn't exist. What's a redemption?
Interesting. So I bet that's probably how it was, though. Like they got these because it's got the Topps Stadium Club branding on there. Now that I'm seeing the back of it, it has Batman Returns. It's one of the cards in the set, but it was in the animated series set that came out later.
1993 Batman the Animated Series, Series 2. Series 1 is pretty good too because it has the first Harley Quinn card. I was probably looking on ComC or somewhere and I'm like, oh, well, one card is like $20 when I'm used to paying like 50 cents.
Video games. We talked about how that affected you as a child. What about Nintendo? Did you happen to find anything on that?
I've got 3 video game sets actually that are on the rarer side. One I would legit say is rare. The other 2, when you go 1992 and compare it to everything else that was out there, they're quite rare. So I'll start with those, and they're both from Topps. Sonic the Hedgehog. So based on the early video games, it might even be the first one. I never had a Genesis, so...
My granny had one. Every time we went to Texas, I got to play Sonic the Hedgehog at my granny's house, which is weird because like she only bought it for me and my brother. But what year was that one?
92 or 93. I'm pretty sure it was 1992.
Actually, 93. It looks like 93 Topps Sonic the Hedgehog. Okay, so what's special about this set?
It's just rarer. For 1992, that's still like prime junk wax, where you would find millions of boxes. For non-sport, for movie and TV stuff, Topps would often print vending cases of just stickers. So a lot of sets like the A-Team, for example, you can go on eBay and find a case of like 3,200 stickers. So obviously lots of duplicates because there's only 22 in the set. But, you know, you look at that era, Sonic the Hedgehog is rare. It's hard to find. It's like, last I checked was like $300-$400 a box.
Actually, in December, one sold for 500. There was one before that, 400. But here's what's interesting is like, and I have to like look at the listings to see if there's anything very different. These have kind of jumped in value. There was one that sold for like $200 in early February. Oh, you know what? That may have just been a one-off because then there were some that were sold for 300. Okay, so this has been for a little while a more popular sought after set, it looks like, being that, like you said, it may have been one of the first ones. I also saw before looking at the box, does it have hollows in it?
It has, I forget, it has stickers. I know it's like a lot of game screenshots, which isn't too exciting. I think there are hollow foil. There are some sort of insert cards here.
Yes, yeah, Prism. They call it the Prism foil insert. One of them, the number 1 of 6, Sonic the Hedgehog is kind of racing across the screen with a classic checkered pattern from the original Sega Genesis game. And as a tin, it sold in March of last year for like $650, which you got to think a tin's got to be rare. But that is a really cool card if you're a Sonic fan. And with all the movies coming out, you know that's got to be pretty popular.
Yeah, and those ones were only 2 per box. So, you know, you look at, if you're looking at 300 to 500 per box and then 2 per box. And with Sonic 2, maybe it's just personal experience, but my daughter, who just turned 20, is huge into Sonic. So it's we've gotten into the like Pokemon where it's multi-generational now as well. Sonic isn't going away.
No, not at all. Okay. Sonic, what was the next video game?
Next one was also from Top Street Fighter 2.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So basically the same principles apply, same 92 or 93 stickers, gaming cards, E-Honda galore. But, you know, much smaller print run compared to everything else that's out there. So it is pretty tough to find.
93 Top Street Fighter 2. Looks like some of the more valuable ones you're looking at, like card number 3, Ryu, as a PSA 10 sold it was a couple years ago, $305. It doesn't look like they sell all that often, but yeah, you can get up into the $200-$300 range when you're talking about some of the higher graded ones. Is this one of the ones that you remember as a kid?
No, I didn't even know it existed until like the 2000s. I've never owned any. I don't think I have any of them. They're kind of I played my Street Fighter, but
see, I wasn't allowed to play Street Fighter, which is funny because we had Punch-Out on Nintendo, and I do have some Punch-Out cards. In fact, there's one right over my shoulder on my shelving back here. There's a Punch-Out card, but yeah, I couldn't play Street Fighter. However, I am still a fan of some of the art on some of these cards, and they have foil inserts as well. Very cool.
Third one actually ties into that Punch-Out card that's on over your shoulder there. Topps did just one set of the Nintendo game packs. In Canada, we had Series 2. So I didn't collect them back in the day, but yes, it is out there. They're extremely those are legit scarce because Canada is a much smaller population. And we don't have as many people collecting cards up here as the United States. So the print run, I imagine, was probably quite small, especially if Topps isn't going to bother, because all that O-Pee-Chee typically did was get Topps to send them all the designs, everything else. They would add the French on the back and put out their own sets. So that is, for me, if I come across it, I'm hoping one day I'm just going to walk into an antique store or somewhere and just see a box sitting there glowing as if it were whatever's in the briefcase from Pulp Fiction.
1989, which is the same year that the Topps set came out. This one also came out, and it is a top or 1989 O-Pee-Chee Nintendo Series 2. A box last sold, or well, I shouldn't say the last box sold, but the highest one sold for $1,000. But that literally may be the only box I can even find a sale of. That was from 2021. I cannot see another box that has sold in the last like 5 years. Wow. Oh, that is really rare. The Series 1 is the tops one. That's the one I think that most people are probably more familiar with, that has some of the like the scratch off games on there, and it's got like not just Punch Out, but I think it's Super Mario 2.
Punch Out's the one that I remember the most, like for sure. But yeah, there was Mario.
It was sadly not Super Mario 3, which is what I always wanted, like to have like something with like the raccoon suit or something like that. The Super Mario 2 was probably my least favorite of the Mario games, unfortunately, but the boxes themselves are still pretty expensive. I've not found many that you could get for less than a couple $100 at the like very cheapest, and that's if you can get one that's like it's not well wrapped and it's got some markings on it and things like that. Because I think some of the ones that have if you got like say a BBCE baseball card exchange where they'll do like the wraps and all that stuff, those can be upwards close to $500.
Yeah, and actually one thing now that you mention it, with the 1980s tops stuff, quite often you'll come across boxes with like a black mark across them or an X, and that is the leftovers. Because cards back then would be sent to corner stores and convenience stores and grocery stores who were allowed to return things, unlike today with the modern hobby shops. They buy their product and it's theirs. Whereas back then, the retail, even actually today, the retail stuff gets returned, and that's how we see, repackaged stuff and whatnot. So if you see the X or the black mark, it simply means it sat on a shelf or in the back room of a grocery store in America or Canada for a while, and it didn't sell, and it got sent back.
Interesting. Okay. Well, you know what? Actually, it does make me feel better knowing like what that X means, because I feel like most of the older boxes that I've got have an X or some kind of marking like that, and I just assumed there was something more nefarious involved with that. So hey, if it just got returned, I can deal with that. Granted, it does seem to, like, looking at some of the sales on the boxes, you can tell those are going to be a little bit more affordable ones versus the ones that don't have any X on there, obviously. Looking too at some of the singles in here, the ones that are selling best look to be the Super Mario 2 scratch, the scratch off ones. Was that like a game involved in those sets?
I believe so. There was like that interactive, you scratch it, move along to the next point, that sort of thing. I would probably be more likely to, get my 8-year-old degenerate side and be like, oh, it's a scratch and win. Did I win $10,000?
That's exactly how I always felt about them. I forgot there's also a Zelda. There's a Legend of Zelda. The ones that were like all yellow. So like for example, the one that's over my shoulder, it's an all yellow background and it's got a character. So in some of them it's Zelda, some of them it's got Lil Mac from Punch Out, in other ones it's Mario. But those are some of my favorite. They pop really well. They just like jump right off the card. Those go for $500 or more in higher grades. But as far as collectability, that is the ones that I'm always looking for.
If you're looking for Mario, you can actually go back to Donkey Kong from 1983. Before he was Super Mario, Topps put out, it's like a 36 sticker set. And it looks really cool because it's like the arcade, like graphic art. And that's a fun set. And with only 36, it's reasonable. Prices have definitely gone up. Boxes are in the hundreds now. But those, from what I can tell, are the earliest mainstream Mario cards. There might be earlier ones from overseas or somewhere else, but there are Mario cards from before Super Mario Brothers came out.
We talked about a little video game. Was there anything else that we haven't covered that you looked into that you want to make sure that we are including in this conversation?
For me personally, with this side, maybe I'm just a purist. I'm getting older and grayer. but it's a lot of fun. That's what I find with the pop culture stuff is sports cards are great. I have boxes and boxes of those too, filling my basement. And but it's the same players every year, and it kind of cycles through. Whereas outside of Marvel and Star Wars, it's pretty much all, I can go buy my A-Team set and have it done and it's complete. The Goonies, the same thing. There was one mainstream set.
That was what I was going to ask you. I forgot about Goonies was another one of the bigger ones that came out. That was actually, it made the list of that Beckett, that non-sport Beckett magazine article from the 1980s. One of the top 10 sets was the Goonies from Topps in 1985. Was that one that was collectible for you too?
Totally. Although I got that one much later. I think like a lot of people got into the Goonies a little bit later in life. For me, I lived in a rural area and didn't have a VCR. So it took me a few years to see it, but I now have the cards. I've now made the journey to the Goonies house. I've done the Truffle Shuffle.
What? That's insane.
Astoria, Oregon. So the house is still there. 10 years ago, took my family, and it was like the 30th anniversary. And so that literally is their entire industry in Astoria, pretty much is Goonies. But they also made Kindergarten Cop and Short Circuit there. So
no way. Did they what was going on in Astoria that they felt the need to make all these awesome classic films in? That's pretty cool. I did not realize that the Goonies, actually, as I'm saying this, the Goonies boxes, they go for like $500 to $600. And they go sell pretty regularly at that price.
It's a huge movie now. Like it's grown in popularity over the decades, really. Like I remember when it came out, it was supposed to be big, and it kind of was, but not really. But on VHS and DVD, it really took off.
Yeah, I think in this set, I'm trying to see like what one of the more popular cards in here would be. I mean, there is obviously, you've got Josh Brolin was one of the actors in the movie, and there's an auto of his that sold a couple years ago for like $600 or something, but I'm not seeing any like specific card that seems to stand out as being like the big chase card. However, I say all that, and there is something that sold back in, and maybe this was just the height of like the bubble, but in February of 2022, and this is on Card Ladder, so I think it's accurate. It shows a 1-of-1 octopus.
Oh, okay. I'm guessing what that was. Does it say American Pie in the title? Because it could be a buyback from the American Pie set or one of those like 75th anniversary. It might have a stamp because that is one of those sets, like most of them from the 80s, where you just have the set. And the autographs, that's a great set for conventions because so many of the actors are making the circuit still today. Sometimes even through the mail can be successful for this end. I may or may not have a Robin Williams that I received in the mail the day after he won his Oscar.
No way. For what movie?
Mork and Mindy, the TV show.
Oh yeah. I have one single Mork and Mindy. Robin Williams is featured on that card, but I've never seen a box of it or a pack of it for that matter. I don't know where I got the card even. Someone may have given it to me, but it is one of my more personal favorite cards. That's so cool that you got an auto right after you got what was it? You said the Oscar for Best Actor?
Yeah, it literally, I must have mailed it out months before that. And it just showed up in the mail one day. It was the day after he'd won his Oscar. And there's like this little note. Is it real? I honestly don't know. I'm scared to get it authenticated because I'll be crushed if it's not authenticated. Because a lot of times you would send mail to celebrities and they would have someone sign on their behalf, or there would be like an auto pen or something. So to me, it's real. I'm never going to sell it. It's going, I'll let my kids deal with it one day.
Yeah. If you're not selling it, don't ask the question. Just assume it's real. And, I was going to say you could compare it to the auto that's on, in Transcendent this year, the Topps Transcendent baseball product. In one of the cards, it has one of these 4 panels autographs where they're cut autos from 4 different comedians that have passed away. It's like him, Richard Pryor, Garland, and Norm Macdonald are all cut autos on there. But someone reached out and they said they can't say 100%, but they think the Robin Williams auto on there may be an auto pin. But I don't know. I don't know how they would even know that, but that's what they had said. So I don't know if you can compare it to that one. So Ryan, I got to tell you, thank you. This is I'm sure we scratched the surface of all the knowledge you have in the non-sport card world. But as far as these series go, these collections go, I couldn't thank you enough, because I am not as well versed. I just know of them. I just don't know much more other than I like it. So thank you for being able to share some of your information on him.
My pleasure and honor.
Yeah. So if people want to read more of what you write, they can go to, I know Beckett, basically anything about cards seems to be written by you, but anything else, where would you like to point them to?
Oh gosh. Beckett.com/news is, the easiest way. Tradercracks.com. If you're curious about a set, just Google it. And if I've written about it, it's probably going to pop up. And I guess on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, at TraderCracks, I try to be fairly active on there. And yeah.
One movie I never talked with you about, but the only reason I thought of it is because I remember reading it. I think it was in your Rotten Tomatoes bio as one of your favorite movies, was E.T. Is that right?
It's my favorite movie ever.
That was a 1982 Topps set. That was that fairly popular? I don't really know much about that set specifically.
For me, yeah, it is. It maybe not value wise, because kids today, they don't like E.T. like us 80s kids did. But for me personally, that was my first set of cards that I remember like getting packs of. Like I can still visually see the grocery store peering over the counter, and it was a big deal to get a pack of cards, because even 25, 35 cents was a lot of money back in the day for my family. So, getting those cards and like the smell and like the gum smell and organizing them, and it's definitely, I have that set. I have the Topps version, the O-Pee-Chee version, bindered up, some stickers. What's cool about that set, I will throw in there is a deleted scene in there that is not in the actual movie, with Elliot in the principal's office. And the principal, I don't know if you know, there was a deleted, he isn't in the final cut of the movie, but Harrison Ford was the principal in E.T.
No, wait, is Harrison Ford on the card?
I think his back might be.
What? That is so cool. But no, I mean, either way, the piece of trivia is very interesting. But man, that's cool. I never thought that they could have cards of pieces of the film that didn't actually make it to the final cut of the film.
Well, they would make the cards well before the movies came out, and it wasn't like the special effects extravaganzas. The Goonies actually has it as well. That octopus that you mentioned isn't in the movie.
Oh, that may be why it's going for so much more. Wow.
And so there's a cut out there. It might have been in the TV cut or something on a VHS tape. It was well known that this octopus existed, but it wasn't in the theater version of the movie. But there's a trading card. Star Wars, you can see lightsaber spelt 2 or 3 different ways in the early sets. C-3PO spelt C-3PO, or written in like words.
Oh, the same with R2-D2. They did the same thing in that one too. Yeah. No, I'm glad you're saying the thing about the octopus, actually, because as someone who enjoyed the Goonies, but I wouldn't say I'm the biggest fan. I did not remember that octopus at all, and I was just kind of like going with it. But I'm glad to know it was from a deleted scene. And looking at the ET set, what's funny is the boxes actually do go for about $250 or so, but it does have a few singles in there that have sold in the last couple of years for almost $500 in some cases. Like the a high grade, it's a PSA 9 of the just photo. It's got a yellow background and it's ET, just him alone on the card. And that one, as a PSA 9, sold for almost $500. So
there's a few in there. Steven Spielberg has an early card in there. He was in Close Encounters, but he does have one where it's him, and that's, I'm guessing, the first set with Drew Barrymore.
Oh, that's
as well.
true too.
So,
Yeah, that's probably her rookie card, isn't it? Or well, I don't know. We don't use rookie anymore. I'm sorry. We after my last episode, I realized first appearance, I think, is what we're trying to push for, something like that for non-sport cards. Thank you again, Ryan, for joining, for sharing your information, and hopefully we can talk more in the future. Ryan is like he sounded. He is very, very knowledgeable on all non-sport things, but apparently he also knows a lot about sports. So I'm not going to downplay the popularity of sports cards on this podcast because I'm not a fool. But if you're into that too, he seems to be a very I was going to say well-spoken writer, if that makes any sense. The way he comes across in his writings of these things, I don't know. It's an easy read. It's to the point, and it's very interesting because he covers a variety of topics. So definitely check out his stuff. All that being said, guys, I am curious if there are more people out there in the world of non-sport cards that you're aware of that know about topics that you want to hear more about. Please reach out. There is an email address, of course, the Facebook group Non-Sports Cards Nonsense. That's the group that kind of started a lot of the desire for this podcast to even exist. So you can feel free to message me on there. Jesse Gibson is my name. If you want to just reach out via email, you can reach out at info@hobbynonsense.com. Feel free to share someone's name, some topic, anything like that. I want to make it more fun. I want to make it exciting and enjoyable to listen to as we continue to evolve with whatever the podcast turns out to be. My overall goal is to make it as entertaining for as many people as possible. And that's only going to happen if I get to hear from you guys, not only the good, because I get a lot of that, but things you want to see changed or different or added in. I am more than happy to take those suggestions. They won't all necessarily be used, but I would love to hear what they are. So again, feel free to reach out on Facebook, on social media, other places, or on the email. All right, guys. Well, that is episode 4 in the books. We're looking forward to next week's episode because next week is going to be pretty cool. We're going to have the president of Upper Deck joining to talk about some of the upcoming non-sport card releases. Now that Marvel is no longer under their licensing, they are going to be doing a lot more when it comes to the DC universe, which is pretty exciting when you think about the new James Gunn version of the Superman movie and what other films and TV shows are slated for this upcoming year and the next couple years in that universe. So we're going to pick his brain a little bit about what sets are coming out, both in the movie, TV, video game, comic, all that kind of stuff, worlds. And hopefully you guys enjoy that interview. Also, as a side note, if anybody from Leaf is listening, I have reached out to a couple people over there. I have gotten 0 responses, which is weird because I typically get a response back. So I would love to have someone on to talk about Pop Century or any of the other non-sport products as well. Guys, if you know someone at Leaf, why don't you just put a little bug in there? Say, hey, Jesse over at Hobby Nonsense wants to have you on the podcast. So just a thought. All right. That's the end of your show. Thank you guys so much. Have a great week.